Hello everyone, thank you for tuning into our show. I'm Jai Sugrim.
And I'm Janet Miranda. We're your hosts of Motivations. Our show is all about bringing resources to the public in the hopes to inspire positive change in the lives of our viewers.
Our topic today deals with an impactful purpose for our audience where we explore modalities that bring clarity and purpose to our life choices, self-development.
It's easy for us to feel like we've lost control of the reins of life and are on top of the horse that's running wild. Every hour of the day, we're bombarded with images that can cause our attention to sway in many different directions. But what if there was a way to make a conscious and specific choices that have the power to put our lives in a positive groove?
According to Swiss-British writer and journalist Johann Hari, one of the world's foremost experts on depression and the author of Lost Connections, Uncovering the Real Causes of Depression and the Unexpected Solutions, he concluded that genetics alone were only a small part of why human beings get depressed and fall prey to addictions.
He realized that a lack of community and a sense of isolation led people to feel a lack of purpose, which set them up for addictive behaviors.
Wow, that surely puts things in a different light when we think of the popular paradigm propagated by the mainstream media. But it's congruent with what we here at Motivations feel with regard to the power of personal choice. By continually focusing on our growth, we can overcome our negative tendencies and create peace of mind.
When we add more awareness to our specific areas of our lives, like taking care of the body and our personal relationships, we shine brighter and can be a positive force in our local communities.
This is precisely why I'm so excited to hear from today's guests.
We hope that you at home are just as excited as we are. We have some revolutionary ideas to share with you that can positively springboard your personal relationships and health.
We here at Motivations believe in the power of personal experimentation in order to learn new skills that can improve our quality of life individually and collectively.
So thanks again for tuning in. Let's introduce our first guest.
In our next interview, we sit down with therapeutic artist and gifted healing facilitator originally from Israel. From birth, he was faced with health challenges and traumas, including structural deformities that required him to wear a full-length cast on his legs for months of his life. Growing up, he endured various surgeries, and his early adulthood, he suffered from cluster headaches, a rare and severe neurological pain condition. Between Western, Eastern, and even holistic medicine, he came to find relief from microdosing with plant medicines. Following a year of psychotherapy sessions with a healthy lifestyle, he was able to ultimately achieve a state of harmony and balance. He obtained a degree in health sciences and trauma and manual therapy. His company, Kinetic Body Therapy, where he does practice potent and cutting-edge healing systems and methods. He believes in more about following a principle-based approach to healing, supporting the body's natural healing mechanisms. One of his services includes what he calls acrokinetic mobilization. Here is Idan Harari.
Hey guys, welcome to Motivations. I am your host, Janet Miranda, and I'm here today with a really special guest, Idan Harari, who's going to give us some really great tips and information about what he does with kinetic energy, with kinetic movement, and some healing tools and resources for you guys to take away at home. Idan, tell the world, what is it that you do, and how can people do some of what you do at home when they're just in their own place of peace?
So what I do is help people who are suffering from pain, whether it's physical pain or emotional pain. And one thing that people can do right away off the top of my head is that they can feel their feelings and their emotions so that they no longer store that energy in their body.
So how does a person identify with the fact that they have some of these traumas or energies that they're storing within their bodies?
Well, honestly, most people won't be able to identify it. They'd have to see a professional like me. However, if you sit in meditation for long enough, you'll start to feel emotions coming to the surface. And so if you feel some discomfort, or sometimes even in meditation we find ourselves falling asleep, that's our body trying to not feel, right? Or ourselves trying not to feel.
How do folks at home know what to do with these emotions, and what types of emotions are you talking about specifically? Like, are you talking about some traumas or something that happened to them when they were a kid, or where does one find that?
So emotions is just energy in motion, right? So when the energy is not in motion and it's not flowing through our body, then we suffer from ailments, illness, disease, and addictions, let's say, which are coming from the source of the addictions, in my opinion, is from trauma, right? It's from childhood trauma. So trauma is a past emotion that's stored in your physical body.
So what you're saying is that it could be an addiction that you're actually dealing with.
Yes, so addictions and addictive behaviors are there to distract us from our feelings and our emotions.
Absolutely.
And so any feelings that are causing us to be uncomfortable in our body are going to be, we're going to try to escape, right? So I'm an escape artist. I mean, I find ways to escape from my feelings and from sitting in meditation and stillness. But I tell you that anyone who's been to something like a Vipassana meditation, where it's 10 days of just sitting in stillness and with your feelings, will tell you that it's challenging. So emotions will come to the surface, and that's how we heal these emotions, by releasing them, by feeling them. And most of us are not feeling our emotions. Most of us are walking around every day in our lives, and we're dealing with distractions. And cell phones right now are like the worst distraction ever. Every time we have an uncomfortable feeling, we go to that phone and we check out our Instagram so we can get that dopamine fix, right? Because it's actually shifting our neurochemistry.
Wow. So what you're saying is that so many of us have become so habitual about running away from actual life.
Yeah.
Running away from dealing with things that happen to us or with us in life, and that we just want to escape from that, so we end up working too much, eating too much, taking substances, etc. But now wrapping that to what you do is, we also, if I understand you correctly, store some of those pain bodies within our body.
Yeah. So essentially, our body is like this field of energy, and if there's blockages of energy in our body, it's going to affect how we show up in our body, in our life. So we're going to have illness, disease, different types of ailments, different conditions that we have no idea are happening because this energy is not flowing, right? So the acupuncture system, for instance, in Chinese medicine is a good example of like how the energy is there to flow by sticking needles in certain spots of the body. It helps to enhance the flow of the qi, or the energy in the body. What I do is, with my hands, instead of working with meridians, I work with intuitively where I feel that a human is holding onto blocks of energy, which are almost like emotional, like energetic cysts within the body.
Wow.
And we're able to extract them and release them from the body. And it does take a professional to help assist with this process and facilitate this process. However, some people have done something like yoga, and certain yoga practices can actually help to shift things and get people to have a release and an emotional release in a yoga class. I had that happen to me after like 3 yoga classes at a festival. You know, I found myself crying, and I was like, what is this, right? So, you know, whenever we tap into our emotions, we're actually releasing those emotions and that emotional energy from our physical system and body. Wow. And this is how we walk around as, like, you know, if you want to be a high performer. So let's say you have no pain, you have no illness, you have no ailments. I'm all about high performance. So if you want to perform better in your life, whether you're an athlete or a high-level entrepreneur, it's really important that we're not walking around with these energetic blockages, because then we're going to be affected in terms of the energy levels that we have and our creativity, our brain, our mindset, just how we show up. And this is just as important as nutrition, but I feel like it's not given as much credit, or there's not enough talk about this. I mean, most people talk about physical pain. So as a manual therapist, my background is as a massage therapist, I started off with working with the physical body. And over time, it evolved to like, okay, the physical pain that you're having is not necessarily coming from your physical body. So it's not a structural dysfunction. Your herniated disc is not what's causing your pain. Your pain is being caused because you're not tapping into your emotions on a daily, right, to really feel what's showing up for you. So you have this contained energy in your fascial system. And the fascia is like a big buzzword lately. It's becoming much more popular with different tools like the fascia blaster. I don't believe that we should be blasting our fascia. I believe we should be working gently and safely in a kind and compassionate way with our fascial system. The fascia is this connective tissue that's everywhere in our body. It's right below the skin, between the skin and the muscles, between muscles and bones, between our organs. Everything is floating within this fascial system and web. And so what I do is, with fascial therapies, I place my hand very gently onto a person's body, in a gentle and safe way, and I work with kids as well, so it's really gentle and safe. It's the opposite of something like Rolfing or structural integration, which can be quite forceful. And what happens is the fascial system starts to release the pressure from the entire body. So my hands could be on the back of someone's neck, and they'll feel twitching happening in their right leg, because the system is full body, a full body system, and it's a web of tissue that's everywhere in our body. So it's not like muscles, where muscles are very local. So if you have an issue in your quad, right, then that issue is in that tissue in the quad, right? It's just there on the muscular level. So I don't work musculoskeletally anymore in terms of like structural dysfunctions. I work with the fascial system, with the emotional system, the emotional energy system in the body, and that's kind of what my practice evolved to. So I stopped kind of treating people for just physical pain.
So is that wrapped into the nervous system as well?
So the nervous system, so all these systems that we're speaking about are all just one thing. We're just a human being, right? We're a light being.
Human magic.
Yeah, we are. We are. This is all just magic. So when we compartmentalize all these systems, it's just to clarify and for educational purposes. But yes, we're working with the nervous system, and the work that I do is with the nervous system. In other words, like my intention is to actually work with the nervous system to heal the body. So I'm not thinking about, like when I used to be a massage therapist, I was thinking about the muscles are tight, let me dig into the muscles. Instead, what I'm doing is thinking about, okay, this muscle's tight. How can I use the nervous system and harness the power of the nervous system in order to get the body to self-correct? Because the body heals itself. I'm just a healing facilitator. I don't like to call myself a healer.
I love that.
People call me that a lot. I say, you know what? Don't call me a healer. The healer here is God, in my personal opinion. And so I think that what I do is just tap us into those forces and let the body self-correct. And this is based in science. This is all Western medicine work that I do, based in osteopathy. So my background is studying osteopathic manual therapy. Osteopaths are medical doctors who are trained in hands-on healing.
It's fascinating. When I think about those things, I say to myself, wow, the body is just such a magical source of energy, if you will. So for someone who walks around and says, oh man, I'm so stressed out, my shoulders are killing me or my neck is killing me, that you're saying could be an emotional knot more so than a physical knot, because they're addicted to work, for example. So they're holding all their stress on their shoulders.
So it's going to be physical. There's going to be physical contractions in our physical tissues, right?
As a
Adhesions.
reaction.
Yes, but the cause of that, the actual cause of that, where it began, was because of an emotional imbalance, right? So in other words, when you're stressed, stress is saying no to whatever is arising. Oh, and I think it's important that we realize we can love whatever arises, even though it's uncomfortable.
Yes.
Right? So we can be uncomfortable knowing that we're met with adversity, but we can also show up in a different way where we're showing up with love rather than fear. So fear is contraction, right? It's when our soft tissues and our muscular system contracts. Our muscles are our armor, right? We are all warriors. This is what I tell my clients all the time.
Love it.
We are warriors. We're going out into the battlefield every day, the battlefield of, for us, New York City, of life, of being an entrepreneur, right? And so, or a lot of my clients, like being a mom, being a kid, being a teenager, right? I work with teenagers too. So it's like, we go into the world as warriors, and we show up with, we put up a lot of armor. And each time that we put up this armor, this muscular armor, it becomes physical pain and tension. And over time, it becomes pain. At first, it's just tension. So this physical tension is physical. However, the cause of it is emotional. And most people are not even accessing that. Most people don't even talk about this. You go to see a doctor, he'll never talk about emotions. Sometimes you'll have a doctor who'll be like, have you been stressed out lately? What's been going on in your life lately? And so one of my clients, signed her divorce papers and all her pain went away.
Wow.
So, we have to realize that how we're showing up in our body is more important than how our body is showing up on an MRI.
With that said, Idan, can you work our audience through a little bit of like an emotional release? Look, maybe a minute or two of what kind of practice they can do at home to release some of these emotions.
So first off, I would say meditation, which has been getting a lot of traction lately. So instead of just sitting in meditation and going through, like I do Vedic meditation, which is a mantra. So anyone who's got a meditation practice, what I encourage is during that meditation practice to set the intention to feel whatever arises and just feel it fully, rather than sitting there and just, focusing on your mantra, let's say, in my case, or sitting there and just listening to a guided meditation, set the intention to feel your emotions and to connect to whatever arises and to accept that and allow it to flow through you. So if you feel some certain emotions coming up to the surface, to feel them. If you feel yourself falling asleep, keep yourself awake. Find a way to sit upright. So I have a friend recently who told me, she likes to lay down and meditate. I said, that's the worst thing you could possibly do. You'll fall asleep, So meditation is huge. And then another good thing that you can do is you can move your body. Movement. So I'm a dancer, I'm a movement artist. Going to ecstatic dance, for instance, and different types of movement classes like 5 rhythms. There's all these different types of movement therapeutic classes that you can take or experiences that you can do and take part in that release the energy from the body. Movement releases the energy. So what happens when a horse or some sort of animal is going through an emotional response? They will start to move their body. You'll see the animals moving, and kids do the same thing. So as adults, we started to lose the movement. We started to I think it all started when we were in school and the parents were like, or the teachers were like, sit still, right? Sitting still doesn't work. It doesn't work for me. I mean, I'm talking to you.
You got to release that energy. You got to move it through. What is a tool that they can do to connect to breath and release the actual pain?
So most of us are in our head. We're not feeling, we're thinking. So what you want to do is you want to place your hands over your heart. And then I want you to check in with yourself, where in my body am I holding on to this tension? Where is this ball of tension? And bring your awareness and attention to that place, right? So if you bring your awareness there, the body will start to heal itself. So awareness alone is actually there as a healing tool.
Excellent. And what about for those folks that have addiction issues, like with food overeaters, or like addiction with actual prescription medication, or whatever people are addicted to, alcohol, whatever it is? How do they release those things? Because they're less physical, they're more mental, right? They're more in the psychological mindset.
Actually, so this is great that you say that, because I don't believe in that. I believe that's false. It's physical.
Is it?
So you know how people say, oh, that's all in your head?
Is it?
No, it's not in your head, it's in your body.
Fascinating.
The body is the unconscious mind. It's the unconscious mind, and every single person that teaches you how to change your habits and behaviors and things like that will work with the unconscious mind. I work with the unconscious mind, which is the body. So through the body and accessing the body, we can actually heal the mind.
Yes.
Because the problems of the mind are actually coming from a physical contraction of energy not flowing, or a glitch in your nervous system that happened from a trauma.
Like panic attacks, where someone can't breathe.
Panic attacks is a traumatic thing that happened to you in childhood, that your body, when you're in a specific situation, your body is thinking, it's reliving that experience, so it goes through the same kind of situation of fear and contraction and high cortisol levels and everything else that's happening in a stress response and in a panic attack. I've had many of those in the past, so I can speak about it, right?
Please tell our audience what they can do when someone is dealing with a panic attack. How can they get out of that state?
So when it comes to panic attacks, it's tricky, right? But what I will say is that sometimes certain people, if you compress and you hug their body, sort of like a child who has autism, and what you do is you hug them and hold them, that can actually help. And then for other people, it's just like letting them go through that. Just let them go through the experience, because what's the worst thing that could happen? They pass out, right? So just be around and make sure you catch them if they're going to pass out.
If they pass out, their body takes over.
Yeah.
Essentially.
Well, it's just shutting down.
What about
it's a shutdown.
What about like service animals and like dogs and stuff like that? It's sort of the same thing of what you're saying, because the dog will connect to you, and then you just kind of give the dog a hug or something, and then you can relax.
I guess so. Yeah, I guess so. I don't know. I'll tell you though, when I was in the psychiatric ward, they did bring a dog every day for us to play with.
Were you admitted to the psychiatric
I checked
ward?
myself in when I was 21 for bipolar disorder. So I have a lot of experience with emotions and with panic attacks and with anxiety and depression. And I was medicated for 15 years and was able to get off my medication with some of the work that I do and share with my clients now.
How did you find out that you had bipolar?
So psychiatry, I went to a psychiatrist and they told me, and they diagnosed me with bipolar disorder. But the thing is that we want to be really clear that any psychiatric label is only a temporary label at a certain time. There's no way that you can always be bipolar. We can exhibit bipolar symptoms. It's just a symptom, And so when I was 21 and I was going through what I was going through, the symptoms that showed up for me were symptoms of bipolar and manic depression. And yes, I do show up as when I'm depressed, I get hypomanic, and that's just my nature, right? But that does not mean that I'm bipolar for life. So I want to be really clear on that.
So any of these ailments, bipolar, anxiety, etc., these are all traits that human beings have, and they carry with them for a short period of time or for an extended period of time, but you're not labeled in this forever. So you got to let that go, is what you're saying, right?
Yeah, well, this is
got to let it go.
It's just anxiety and depression. Everything else, bipolar, schizophrenia, all these different things.
ADHD.
All of that is just anxiety or depression. They created this whole book with all these different labels and symptoms of how you're showing up in your body, but it's not constant.
Amazing.
It's a temporary state. So to label yourself that, it can be helpful for therapeutic intervention. However, it's not, we want to beat the stigma, and I'm really passionate about mental health and how we have to beat the stigma, because the truth is, once you're labeled, and people who are not educated are going to label you and say, okay, you're insane. So what are we going to do to listen?
Fascinating.
So meditation is a way of listening, right? Movement is a way of listening when you move intuitively, and intuitive movement is there to move the energy through the body so that you can feel better. So for me, I would dance like 5 hours at night, like at dance parties, and that was my way of escaping and releasing all that energy from my body, until I found myself taking something like homeopathy and homeopathic remedies to heal myself fully. So then I found myself not needing to go and dance 5 hours to release all that energy.
Idan, man, thank you so much for coming to the show and sharing with our audience what we could do and really just giving us some information. You know, so many of us walk away or just walk through life identifying with these labels that you talk about. I mean, there's doctors and specialists out there that throw this label on you and you kind of think, yes, this is me now. I have to medicate for the rest of my life. But what you're saying is you really don't need to medicate for the rest of your life. Just love yourself to the point where you acknowledge that you have a trait or a situation that you have to deal with or deal through that may have stemmed through a childhood trauma. But
usually it's childhood trauma.
Usually childhood trauma. But just love yourself enough to give yourself the time. Idan, can you tell the world where they could find you, please?
Sure. They can check me out on Instagram at Kinetic Body Therapy, and just Google Kinetic Body Therapy and you'll find me.
Thank you so much for coming. Guys, stay tuned. Motivations. I'm Janet Miranda. Peace out.
Peace out.
In our next interview, we sit down with personal development and dating coach based in New York City. His coaching style emphasizes on self-development through happiness, focus, and self-love. His goal is to help people find their own happiness and purpose. He believes that not only is self-love the key to finding the ideal romance people are looking for, happiness is also the foundation for everything you have ever wanted to accomplish in life. He is currently a coach for Caravan Wellness and writer for Addicted to Success, The Huffington Post, and Success Magazine. We want to welcome Zachariah Bourne.
I'm Janet Miranda, and I'm so happy to be here today with Zachariah. Zachariah, please tell the audience, tell the world what it is that you do and where people could find you to start.
Sure. Happy to talk about it. So I'm a personal development coach, and I specialize in dating. And what I like to do is help people find really rich, amazing relationships. That's definitely what my passion is.
And this is a really relevant topic, folks, because I think the world is in such a place where when they have that really great, juicy relationship, they're happy, they're centered, they're focused. But sometimes that relationship could all of a sudden take on a very negative vibe. And then all of a sudden start flourishing in a negative cycle, and before you know it, it becomes toxic.
Yeah.
So do you only help people attract love, or do you also help people salvage the love that they have?
Of course, I'll help any part of the relationship. Mostly I focus on helping people attract the love and to becoming the person they want to be when they attract, letting them become the person they want to be, to bring in that person to their life. Because I think in order to attract someone really great, we have to be great ourselves. And so what happens with a lot of people when it comes to relationships starting to take that negative light is I notice in the beginning of a relationship, people really focus on the great aspects of the other person, right? You're dating them, you see so many great things to appreciate, and it really lights you up. And then as the relationship continues to go on, we start focusing more and more on the negative aspects of.
Now, is that like a human quality, or is that where does that come from?
It doesn't have to be. I think it has to do with, most people have this mentality that they should look for the problems, in their life. They tend to focus on what's going wrong as opposed to what's going right. And a lot of times we don't stop and appreciate the great things that we have in our life. And I think that's something that's really important for us to do as a relationship continues on, is to take time to really appreciate who they are, really appreciate who they let you become in the relationship. And it's really important to take time to just love and appreciate and find those positive aspects of that person.
So let's talk a little bit, and this is for the folks that are coupled, but let's just talk about for a moment, for those folks that are single. Now, you just released an entire series on, single people attracting love and goodness into their life. Can you tell the world what you published and what exactly your thoughts are about how to actually manifest greatness and love into your life?
Sure. Well, there's a lot of things to talk about. There's a lot of aspects to it. So I have a free 3-day Attract Romance video series.
That just sounds beautiful. Attract Romance.
Yeah.
Does that mean that, if I watch your series, that the guy on the silver horse is going to come?
Well, everyone has their own different definition of what a really great relationship is for them. And so I think it's really important to let yourself decide what that is. And what I notice is a lot of people, they don't really become ready for what they want to create. They don't really become ready for that relationship, right? Oftentimes they still have old baggage from old relationships. They haven't become the person that they want to become. They don't have space in their life for that person, and expect to make all the changes once they show up.
Can you talk us through, because you've just said so many juicy things, let's go back for a second. You said for someone to be able to attract love into their life, they have to have the space to be able to do that.
Of course.
Mentally, emotionally,
absolutely,
physically, obviously, right?
Right.
So how does one who's just departed or left a relationship physically, how does one really know that they have released their baggage, if you will? Or what are some tools and resources that you can offer to the world to actually help them in releasing the old baggage?
Of course. And there's a lot of things. One of the main ways you can really tell if you've healed, and I don't hear a lot of people talk about this, but one of the great ways you can tell if you've healed is when you immediately think of a relationship, you get an emotion, right? When you think about the concept of relationships, an emotion comes up, positive or negative, whatever that is.
Okay.
And if it's positive, when you think of relationships, most of the time you've healed. But if you still have those old stings, when you think of relationship, or if you have that old charge, there's still some work to be done.
Whether negative or positive, if you have any type of emotion that you're releasing when you talk about the person.
You want it to be on the positive side. You want to have the concept of relationships as a whole. You want to move that back into the positive, right? If you're thinking about, old love that hurt you, when you think about relationships, a lot of times we're going to drag that into our new relationship.
How?
So it happens all the time. We have these old hurts. We have these old hurts in our life. And if we haven't released them, we expect the next person to do the same. And
I get it. So like if you think someone cheated on you in the past, you think now everyone is going to cheat on you type of thing?
And it happens to a lot of people. Or we have tender spots where people have maybe hurt us in the past. And it's really important that we move past that. We regain our own personal value and self-worth, and to be really excited about what we can offer. And that's a real game changer for a lot of people, because they don't appreciate how much they can give.
So before we move on into attracting anything, let's just talk about the healing process.
Of course.
What does that look like? Like if there's someone out there that still has that residue from that old relationship, how do they just release it from themselves?
Well, it's a bit of a process.
What are some tools?
What a great tool, something that you guys talk a lot here on the show about is meditation is a great tool. And a lot of people don't really understand the clarity that something like meditation can bring you. And all of a sudden you start to see the old hurts in relationships and things like that from a different perspective. It becomes much more clear why that person maybe acted that way, and you can find a lot more forgiveness. You can find more lightness in yourself, and that's a great way to release. Also, just trying to give people the benefit of the doubt. A lot of times it's really easy, and it's normal for us to sort of, how often do people hate their exes? It's super common. It's almost like the standard. And I think that's something we sort of have to let go of, and not to focus on the negative aspects of the old relationship and not demonize, the older people, the people who have come before, but instead try to focus on the positive aspects. Because I find in most relationships at the beginning, there are a lot of beautiful moments. And you shouldn't throw the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak. And you can really appreciate those beautiful moments still. And that can give you new hope in your new relationship.
But some people would say that if you are thinking about the good times, you might then rekindle some of the flames for that old person, even though you know they're not the right person for you.
Well, I think we have to be honest with ourselves, and if it is breaking off and a lot of negativity has happened, maybe it is time for something new. And so can we appreciate at a distance? And can we...
That's a good one. Could we appreciate at a distance?
Can we appreciate at a distance? Because everyone in your life has helped you in some way. Even if someone was horrible the whole time, they've at least given you clarity. They've given you passion to find something really wonderful and great and to love more fully than you ever have before. So even negative experiences have a positive benefit if we can start to see it that way.
Sure. And then when you put on that positive thinking cap, if you will, and you say, well, now I'm the person who I am today, I have more strength or whatever it is because of that relationship, you could then begin to move on.
Yes.
And heal those old wounds, right?
Of course, absolutely.
And then what's the step after that?
And I think it's really important to start feeling, a lot of times in our mind, we think we have a lot of self-worth and value, but a lot of times beneath the surface, we still hold on to not thinking we're worth as much as we should. And so I think it's really important to then stop and to increase your self-worth. Because when you have high self-worth, you won't allow someone to treat you poorly. And also, you'll be able to draw more positive aspects of the people you do date. And it also creates some positive momentum going into your next relationship.
So what kind of tools or suggestions would you give to those singles out there that have released their exes, that have moved on? And I will have to say that there are some people out there that think that success is defined by, various things. Sometimes people could think that, being successful in love means that you have 5 concubines and 6 women that just, do things for you, whatever it is. So, first of all, what defines a successful relationship?
Well, a successful relationship is really an individual thing, because I think success is happiness. And many times we want to say success, we want to put it into like a specific box, as opposed to, letting it be what you want it to be. So I encourage, instead of saying that, okay, I want to just rush all the way to the end, because a lot of people are like, okay, I can't wait to get married and have kids, but then you miss all the beautiful moments along the way. And I really encourage people to really try to approach their life with a series of beautiful moments.
Ooh, that's so nice.
And to really enjoy fully those beautiful moments, because every part of the relationship is great, even before they're there. As you're falling in love with the dream of someone before you've even met them, it's such a juicy, delicious part of the relationship. And a lot of times people just want to rush to getting it, and then they want to rush to being in a relationship, and then rush to being married. But you really have to take the time to savor it. And I notice things actually tend to flow much easier when we start to really savor and appreciate every beautiful moment that we have with this person, even before they get here.
That's beautiful. For those that don't really understand appreciation, what does that look like?
Appreciation. Well, appreciation is a state of being where you're increasing the value of something. It's sort of a state of joy about something. You're expanding your perspective on how wonderful something is, and it really fills you up. You feel this kind of flow of positive energy in you. You feel really excited. It feels very fulfilling and satisfying. And so it's focusing on positive characteristics of anything around you, and getting that feeling really going strong. That's appreciation.
Now, is this what your series is about, or do you take
That's an aspect. It's an aspect of my series. Another aspect of my series is to start finding the emotional states that you want to feel. What I have people do is take 5 core emotions they want to feel in a relationship and write them down, and to start spending time feeling those emotions. It's sort of like conditioning yourself for what you're going to have. And so say it's passion or happiness. How do you want to feel with that person? And as you can start focusing on how you want to feel, a lot of things can start lining up for you.
That's beautiful. Wow. I never thought about the concept of actually applying those emotions first, but it kind of works through the laws of attraction.
Yes.
Right? When the laws of attraction say, feel it, see it, do it, and it'll appear.
Right.
So I appreciate that. What happens if there's, someone who takes your course and then says, well, I started dating and I found 3 people that I love at the same time. What then?
Well, I think there's, I can't judge anyone because there's so many different ways to love. And I think that's something we always have to be honest with ourselves and how we feel. If you prefer to only date, one person, or you feel like you want to explore more, taking more time before you decide on what you want to do, I think that's totally fine. And I think it becomes more clear as you date. And of course, I think you want to be upfront with the people you date, on what you're doing. And but over time, as you spend time dating them, I think it becomes clear where the best match is.
So let's go back for a second, and I definitely want to know how it becomes clear what the best match is, because let's just say that there's some people that get torn by how they feel physically about someone, where they're not really paying attention to what the best match is, if they really thought it through. So let's talk first. You mentioned that when they're, it's what people really want, right? It's what they want, and for them to be upfront with the other person. Well, I think is a topic in itself. Like, how does a person that's dating, how do you be upfront about dating other people? I mean, that's just something I think the world should know. How do you say to someone, and when do you say it? On the first date? On the 5th date? During dinner? During lunch? I mean, is there a good time to say, oh, by the way, I'm dating 13 other men? Not that I am. I'm just asking.
Of course. And, that's one of those tricky things that you kind of have to follow your intuition about. You have to get a sense of the other person. And I think it's good to be upfront as soon as possible. So as soon as a moment presents itself that you feel is a good point to mention it, or where you're at, I think is important. That way you can help that person make what is the right decision for them. And I think most people, if they're the right person, they'll understand. They'll understand. And I'm not saying that they should be walked over, but I think, I think the right people, you don't have to worry about explaining things. You can be honest with them, and I think they'll get it.
But when do you be honest with them? Because you don't really know them on the first date or two, right?
You don't, and that's true. And I'm not saying you have to do it on the first date. You really have to make a decision for yourself. It's not something that you can really set in stone. Maybe it's before you meet them at all. maybe it's before, maybe it's, you know, during the first date, maybe it's during the third date. There's no set in stone rule as to when. And people are individual too, and so you really have to base it on them and your rapport. But I think in this day, it's common, especially in New York, for dating, especially while you're getting to know someone, that you're not dating just one person. A lot of times people are dating more than one person as they're exploring what works best for them.
Until that conversation, right?
Until that conversation, yeah.
So another quick question for you. So it's assumed that people are dating others until you have that serious conversation in the adult dating life, if you will, right? In New York, for example.
Right.
But, you know, furthering that a step, you mentioned in the beginning that there are people that just, you know, they have a vision for themselves. They want to get married. They want to have the kids. They want to progress in how they see fit.
Right.
So for people in different age categories, does it matter? Because you did say you have intuition, you should be able to sense. Does it matter? Like when you meet someone and you have that spark, should you wait a year? Should you wait 2 years? Is it to each their own? Or what suggestions can you give to the world?
You know, that's such an individual thing, because some people, they meet someone and, you know, and then they're never away from them for the next 8 years, the first time they meet them, or the rest of their life. And that does happen with some people. And then some people like to take it slower. And I'm actually one of the people who likes to take it slower and take my time getting to know someone. And so there's really no right or wrong. You really have to just feel it out and decide what kind of person you are. Do you like to take more time with this type of thing? What do you feel comfortable with? What does the other person feel comfortable with? And I think it's good. And another important match point is that you both have similar pacing. You know, you both want to have similar pacing. That's another aspect of matching with the right person.
Now, I'm really going to blow your mind right now.
All right.
Does the pacing have anything to do with the residue from the previous relationships?
It can. It can have to do with our social conditioning and what we think our parents expect of us, or you know, we might feel a rush because a bunch of people around us are having kids,
or delay because we've been burned with someone,
or delay because we're burning someone, or delay, you know, and we can't really define it as delay because everyone's on their own clock.
Right.
But some people, maybe they're building a business, or they're really wanting to focus on the career, so they're taking more time with that. Everyone is a unique individual.
Right.
And so you have to make that up for yourself.
Wow. So tell us what it is. Give us those juicy elements of how to attract love into your life for those singles out there. Didn't you state that you can attract love in a specific time frame?
Well, so it's not about, a lot of people focus on the time frame. I helped one of my clients attract love in 3 days.
3 days.
3 days.
Love? Like real?
Love, and they're still together. It's been 2 or 3 years, and I get to check up on them on Instagram and stuff, and it's really beautiful. But I've helped a lot of people attracted. But one of the great things to do is just get really clear on what you want. Maybe you want to start writing down positive aspects of a person that you want to meet. You know, it's great to make a list. And you want to play it as if it's already the future and they're already here, right? I'm so grateful, so appreciative that I met someone who has these attributes. And then you can write a list of all these like really great things. And it should be really fun. You should feel amazing as you're writing this. And it's a great thing to couple with the 5 core emotions of how you want to feel in that relationship. And that'll get your mind conditioned and start moving toward the things that you need to do to attract it. And also it brings you a lot more clarity when you do find it. Oh, this person is really wonderful. And even the person I helped to, you know, meet someone in 3 days, they met them and immediately he knew that this was the person. And it took them maybe a month to really start dating more, but they had met, he'd seen it and he knew it. And maybe she didn't even know it yet, but he knew, and he came back to me very excited, and he's like, I know this happened. I'm super excited about where this is gonna go. And then, over time that builds. But he had that clarity right away. And so having a clear idea of what you want in your life can really help you move in the right direction.
As far as love is concerned, as far as anything is concerned, really.
Yeah, as far as anything.
It's so funny you say about make a list. I have to say, about 10 years ago, I made my own list.
Mm-hmm.
And I did meet someone later on in life who met a lot of the, I don't want to say criteria, I'll just say a lot of the goals that I listed out on my list. But it's so important to be specific about what you value most, because I did leave out a couple of things that were total relationship killers that took place in that relationship, and I thought, these are total deal breakers. And then I looked at my list and I was like, I never noted them on my original list.
Right.
So how important is it also to list or have an idea of the deal breakers, or do you spin that in a positive way so that you don't attract the deal breakers?
Well, that's the tricky thing, right? When we focus on red flags, we whatever we're really focusing on, we end up kind of creating out in our life. So if we're really focused on red flags and deal breakers, we find them, and people.
Right, we don't want those.
Right. So it's important also to amend your list. And another important thing is too on your list to only talk in the positive, because it's so easy to be not crazy. You could write not crazy on
and there are some crazy folks out there.
Yeah.
Right?
And so if instead we can say, very
sane,
cool-headed.
Very cool-headed and very sane, very balanced.
Yeah, balanced, right?
Healthy mind.
Right, healthy, positive. You want someone who brings happiness into your life. And so in order for you to do that, you have to be happy yourself. You have to become a match to what you want as well.
Wow, and raise the vibe.
You got to raise the vibe, yeah.
Well, I can't wait to watch your program. Can you tell the world where they could find you, Zachariah?
Absolutely. You can check me out on Instagram and YouTube. On Instagram, you just search Zachariah Bourne, Bourne. Same thing on YouTube. I have a link to this free series in my bio on my Instagram, so you can just click it right there and get in the free series and improve your love life.
Zachariah, we are so grateful that you came on
Absolutely.
to share the love and the knowledge, and of course, tell the world how they could manifest greatness and love into their life as little as 3 days, and you gave them tools and resources in abundance to manifest love into the world. Thank you again for
thank you so
joining.
much for having me.
Zachariah, one other thing before you can leave, do you have 2 or 3 things that you want to say to the world with respect to motivating them in love for those folks that were hurt in the past?
Yeah. So I do really want to say that life can be much better than people realize. And the relationship can be so much richer, I think, than even the people around you have really scratched the surface of. And we do that by changing the way we think, changing our perspective on how we view relationships, letting ourselves really be who we are truly, and not letting societal expectations dictate anything, because it's so easy to get caught up in programming. And instead, really decide what you want, and you can really create that. And so I just encourage everyone to think about what you want and focus on that, and to focus on their own positivity, because that can be a huge changer in your life.
Well, this is Zachariah Bourne, and I am Janet Miranda, your host at Motivations. Stay tuned. Thank you, everyone, for watching our show. We truly hope you enjoyed it.
Tune in on our next episode airing soon. More exciting details and upcoming guests will be featured on our social media pages.
Like us on Facebook, follow us on Instagram, tweet us on Twitter, and don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. We'll both see you there.